and nada. On behalf of Gunditjmara and in particular, no, not in particular, welcome you to Ceremonial Gundish land today. Ceremonial Gundish is one of the 59 clans of the Gunditjmara. My name's Arlene Alberts. I'm Gilgar Gunditj, and the country that I belong to abuts Ceremonial Gundish, basically from Tarandara up to a certain point. We're Gunditjmara, everyone knows that. We're the fighting Gunditjmara. We have fought for a long, long time for our rights. To be on our country, to live on our country, to take resources from our country. We are honoured with Auntie Christina here today and Auntie Laura. Auntie Tina.
How are you, darling?
I'm good, thank you. And Sandra Onus really pushed our fight back in that 1980s for our right to protect cultural heritage on this country. Followed by the Lake Conda-Framingham Forest Act, which gave us back our mission. And then we started fighting for native title. 11 years in the running, and we got through. 5:30 the night before, Justice North sat at at Budj Bim and said that yes, you have the right to protect your native title. You are the descendants of the original people of this country. So after that, it was the National World Heritage listing. That came about very quickly. A lot quicker than the World Heritage listing. 2007, we achieved our native title with Justice North. What is it, our 27th birthday coming up on the 30th of March. From there, it was our fight for World Heritage listing on one criteria alone: the right to protect our cultural heritage, and that our cultural heritage here is of world standards. You know, we have Budj Bim over there in the background. He erupted some 35,000 years ago. Stories from Auntie Iris Lovett Gardner. She would tell of a people running away from the rain of fire, the rivers of fire. We've been here a long, long time, way before that. You know, Moijul, they say, is 120,000 years old. We have fish traps here that are 6,600 years old. We have stone houses here that shows shotgun pellets and how they burnt the stones as they went into the huts to kill us. We were hunted up the lava flow. A lot of us found refuge. And the same guy that brought in, you know, the Yoorrook War, some say it went from 1832 to 1860. I reckon we're still fighting that Yoorrook War. It wasn't ended when Jupiter was shot over near MacArthur. He was the leader of that. Today we have a lot of leaders amongst us Uncle Mook, Denise, wherever she is. And a lot of others amongst us who stand beside all Gunditjmara people. And Donna, I forgot you. Sorry. They stand beside all Gunditjmara people in their fight for justice. So in welcoming you here today, I've got the cherry ballot to chase all those bad things out of your spirit and ask the Gunditjmara wants to come in and protect you while you're here on country. And my fire has gone out again. And the she oak. The she oak, I know, is a gift from the old men who stand around Budj Bim, who Budj Bim helped us to make life a little bit easier here. Diverted the waterways, gave us his blood, which is the scoria that you see everywhere down here, the basalt, to enable us to live a very rich, full life. I grew up just over the other side of the lava flow. It was my playground when I was growing up. I grew up in an extended household with my grandparents, my great uncles, my aunts, my cousins. And I wish I could have given that kind of life to my children and my grandchildren and of course my great grandchildren. But soon as they turn old enough to understand the ways, I walk them around country like my great uncles and my dad did with me. To learn country, to know country, to belong to country is what we're all about and what we should all be about. It protects us, it sustains us, and it gives us faith. So I invite you all to come along and get smoked and either choose the cherry ballot or maybe the old men might grant you some of their wisdom with the she oak. So, who wants to lead us off? Elders first. Oh, old.
Old, no, don't get old.
Everybody told me to be out here by 9 o'clock this morning. So I've had this going since about 10 to 9. Hello. You're welcome. Hey? It's deadly. How are you?
Yeah, good as gold.
I'd like to say hello. We're a Lake Conda dance group called Gunditjmara, and that was our welcome dance. You've seen the girls come in and do their sweep, and then the boys come in a couple at a time to do their shake a leg. Now that we've got the fire going, we'll do the fire dance. So this one shows the 3 methods we use to make a fire. Got the rubbing of the sticks together, hitting the stone, flint stone, and then blowing on the embers to get the flame. baka, pakuyan kuyan pa, pakuyan kuyan, pakuyan kuyan, pakuyan kuyan. Kap, pa, pakuyan kuyan pa, pakuyan kuyan baka, pakuyan kuyan, pakuyan kuyan, pakuyan kuyan. Pa, pakuyan kuyan pa, pakuyan kuyan baka, pakuyan kuyan pa, pakuyan kuyan, pakuyan kuyan, kuyan kuyan. Wimben tilapana, dimben turawana, bimben tilapana, a tilapana, a tilapana. Top, wimben tilapana, dimben turawana, bimben tilapana, a tilapana, a tilapana. Wimben tilapana, dimben turawana, bimben tilapana, a tilapana, a tilapana. Kerma, going, Newt. Top. Next up, we've got the girls. They're going to do their berry picking dance. So this one's called Papachungangalangeng. They pick the berries from the trees. They also throw some back when they got too much, or some of the seeds so the trees can grow again. Papachungangalangeng, Papachungangalangeng, Papachungangalangeng. Papachungangalangeng, Papachungangalangeng, Papachungangalangeng. Papachungangalangeng, Papachungangalangeng, Papachungangalangeng. Kerma, going, stop. The girls are actually a little bit nervous. They done their first girls only dance just last week, and then this one here is the first time Ruby Jenner being the leader of the girls. It's good to see the young ones coming through. One more, we've got this one's called Bun Bun. So this is the lyrebird dance. The other dances we've done here this morning are dances that are created by us, made by our dance group. This was one that we traded for with the mob from Gippsland, Gunai Kurnai mob, and this is the lyrebird dance. So over there they call him Woorrow, and they sing a song about how they love the lyrebird and the way he sings his song. So down here we sing about Bun Bun, which is our word for lyrebird. Bum 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 like a word, a bum like a worm, bum bum lerping worm. Bum 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 like a worm, bum bum lerping worm, bum bum like a worm, bum bum like a worm. Stop! Bum 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 like a worm, bum bum lerping worm, bum bum like a worm. Bum 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 like a worm, bum bum lerping worm, bum bum like a worm, bum bum lerping worm. Stop! Go behind Nan.
So Nyata, Nyatawa everyone, my name is Donna Wright. I'm a proud Gunditjmara woman of the Gunditjmara Nation. I'm also the First People's Assembly representative for the reserve seat Gunditjmara. So I'm here representing our mob, but I'm also here representing my mother and my family. This is our country, this is my mother's land. This beautiful place here. Mum grew up here with her family. She was very loved. I just want to pay my respects to my elders here today. I apologise, Uncle Johnny, Auntie Tina, Auntie Laura. The most strongest Gunditjmara elders, resilient people in our community who have our stories, our culture, our knowledge, have kept us safe, have looked after us, have looked after our country. But this place is so special. And what our people have been through since invasion will be told through the stories to the Yoorrook Justice Commission. My mother was stolen from the mission where she grew up with her parents and her siblings and families and all my elders' families as well, and many of the mob here today. And she didn't get to grow up in a loving home. She was taken. So to be here today, to be here at the Yoorrook hearings is very important for our family, especially my mother. My grandfather never recovered from his children being taken. And it's one of the most horrific acts, apart from all of the massacres that occurred on our land. These were sustained attacks on our country, but they're a testament to the amazing strength of Gunditjmara people, our warriors, our ancestors who fought those wars, the Gunditjmara war that Maud spoke about this morning. And I always think about them when I'm home and their fight, and it's important to honour them and remember them. And through talking to the Yoorrook Justice Commission, we will honour their memory and their fight, their resilience. And we are the modern day warriors now, taking over that legacy, and we are here, our organisations represent our people, but here in this place to talk about the injustices inflicted on generations of our children is the rightful way to have these hearings, especially here as we bore the brunt of colonisation. And in this part of our country, there's a glorification of the colonisers who stole our land, the massacres, the murders, the frontier violence against our women, but our children as well. And it did not stop us. We're still here and we're still fighting. We are the proud Gunditjmara, the fighting Gunditjmara. And you're in a very, very old place, a special place that our people have fought to protect and continue to protect and now share with many, many people. And it's such a privilege for you to be able to come down here and see this beautiful country and learn more about our fight and the injustices our people faced. I'm proud to be a First Peoples Assembly member for my people. I was elected by them, but I'm more proud to be standing in front of my elders and have the honour to speak in front of them today and my community and our leaders in this beautiful, special place. So thank you. And I just want to introduce my fellow Assembly member, one of Auntie Laura's family. The baby aunt. I wanted to say that, but I thought I'd better check with you because I don't know if I thought it was Damien. But oh, and Denise, sorry Denise, Auntie Laura's daughter as well. But can I just say, I've been an Aboriginal educator for most of my years, and to watch our beautiful babies, and I just want to acknowledge Ruby Jenner, if she's here. She did an amazing job leading the dancers today and them little boys with her. And if anyone noticed when they were doing that, there was Bunjil was flying in the background. So it was just a very, very beautiful thing. And I think, Troy, you're an amazing leader. The dance that you do, the way you speak, the way you hold yourself. Very proud to be part of this today. Thank you. And I'll just hand over to Moko. Thank you.
Natmwa, welcome to Tayrak, beautiful place. Thanks Auntie Maud for the great welcome. Troy and the dance group, amazing. It's what they've done over the journey, to represent and instill strong culture is significant. I just got to say, our youth justice around this part of the world is near zero. It's because of the connection to country. You can go other places and we're next to zero. If we've got one or two on the system at the moment, that'd be it. And it's been that for about 10 years. But for, I'd just like to acknowledge our elders. My mum, Auntie Laura, very lucky to have her around with us. She's tough as nails, as you can see. And obviously Auntie Tina, great to see her. And Uncle Johnny, he's just absolute legend down this way in the fight for Gunditjmara. It's been amazing. I'm just going to talk a little bit about my my time, my life journey. You know, born in '63, turned 60 last December, so very, very lucky. And it's around the model of that self-determination, because in the early 70s, Mum and many others created the Hayward LAECG, Local Aboriginal Education Consultative Group. And you know, through self-determination and real interested in building our culture, because we're pretty much town people. We lived out here, out near Lake Conda there for a little while, but pretty much lived in town. Not much access to stuff. I think Mum got a car, but she didn't have a licence, and we got around. But it was that connection to the LAECG was significant, because it grouped us together. You know, when we talk, Uncle Theo, Auntie Tina's brother, he talks about the old church out the Mish, how mob were coming together in those 50s, and then the blowing it up meant people got dispersed again. That was part of the strategy, you know, get us together and we're dangerous. It's you know, it's how we operate. And so getting us together in the 70s, you know, seeing us go over the Fram, catch up with our mob over there. The resilience they showed in them early days aren't. Yeah, we punched on a little bit, but it was all fun, you know. And they give it back hard, and we've continued to coexist, and that's significant. And those early days of Hayward LACG, seeing the establishment of the Lake Conda and District Aboriginal Cooperative in Hayward, that provided opportunities. And then, you know, later years we created the Gunditjmara Aboriginal Cooperative. But the timeline, go back to the Ceremonial Elders Corporation, the significance from the Alcoa decision, and so lucky to have Auntie Tina sitting here with us today, and Auntie Sandra to be here, but you know, she's still going strong and very resilient, and always acknowledged the opportunities that decision provided me, because we never had land. We only had the bit of land, a little bit of access to the cemetery. I think that was about it, and it wasn't under our title. It wasn't there. And that decision from the Kerrip seen us get the 100 acres back at Lake Conda Mission. That was a home, you know. Many were living in commission homes that time. Many still live in a commission home. Pay the home off for government, community, and still got to pay, even if they're 80-something years of age. It's quite significant. I'm putting that on the table as a treaty member. It's you know, we can have some early wins and, you know, show some resilience, because many of the elders who are in those homes provided safety, diverted people away from jail. Still today, those homes divert people away from jail. You know, it's $150,000 to put someone in jail. Generally, it's 3 years, so it's about $450K. You know, you do the sums. Imagine if that went into a few homes. Like, that'd change my life. I'm lucky now. I'm lucky for what I've received, but I just know how lucky people are if they have a bit of a chance, and that self-determination is significant. And, you know, obviously the Ceremonial, the great opportunities through the mum and aunts and uncles there provided us access to land and the growth, and then obviously our traditional owner group, Gunditjmara, to be sitting here today. Some 10 years ago, this water wasn't here. It only rise every 10 years, when we get a flood. That was about the only time for 60, 70 years that water wasn't there. And the Ceremonial elders back in the 80s created a diversion channel right up the top here to get water back to the other side of the wall there. And then, through self-determination and another stab at it through Gunditjmara, this water's here, and just want to acknowledge Uncle Kenny Saunders. That vision to create the Lake Conda Sustainable Development Project was significant, and we had Unc's funeral out here last year, and to see him go past this water, and the habitat that's out here is amazing. To just last weekend, the women's culture burn that took place is practicing our culture. So the resilience is amazing. You know, not just mum, but a lot of the elders, their family, siblings, Uncle Johnny and Auntie Tina's mob passed away early. We lost a lot of my generations have gone early before they were 50. And, you know, for us coming together and working together, we have more over 70, a lot more over 80 living with us today on the earth and contributing to our community, and the respects that they give to those little girls and boys out there today dancing. So that continuation is still impressive. People seem to think, oh, you got everything right now. There's that perception. And, you know, when we have a death, which happens in our community, everyone's still got to chuck in. You know, many of the elders sitting here today never had opportunity to superannuation. You know, I was lucky in the 80s to get, you know, as part of your job, you're lucky to have that in there. But many today don't have that. Don't have one, you know, they don't ask for it either. They won't stand up here and ask for it. Nor should they. It should be offered. Because you should have some dignity and be acknowledged for your contributions and that. So, you know, land justice is very important. Only Donna just spoke about the wars and of the early settlers, the continuation of destruction of sites. You know, we hear people will walk away from the treaty process because of culture heritage management. Like they pick one or two little things. Like we know that treaty's about 360 degrees. I don't know how many minutes and seconds are in that, Trav, but there's a lot. And, you know, so those, you know, I think they're only seconds, those little things that we can all work on, you know, to make statements that you got to get out of it, because of little things like that is scaremongering. I mean, we're here to work for the community. We grow, I think another one, Uncle Kenny's signs is just out here. When the lake's good, we're good. And the lake's looking pretty good, you know, for this time of year. It's usually dried up a bit more than that, but it's got good water in it. Yeah, there's going to be more said about the connection, but as a young bloke growing up to being here today, the demonstration of self-determination by our leaders to give us an opportunity, and that continuation where we're going is here, watching the staff in this room. You know, you can go and get a job. You can go and get a loan for a home when you got a job. You know, it wasn't that long ago we had 6-month funding agreements. You're an Aboriginal health worker and that's all you had was a 6-month funding agreement. You know what the bank said to you? Nah, no way. So our community housing program is still very, very important to us. We need another 1,000 homes here. Just around here today, we're losing staff because we can't house them. We haven't got the capacity. Unc hasn't got 20 million on him right now.
I've got a 30-foot caravan.
You got the old caravan, you know, and you know, it's as simple as that, you know, and we haven't got that, but we're entitled to get some of this because, you know, the disruption to us, to an economic base, is significant. I mean, I was lucky enough to go and learn a little bit, you know, just learn about the compound interest. It was significant, you know, and I think we do a pretty good investment, you know, we're getting smarter with our money, sometimes too smart, eh, Unc? Too many request forms, but that's all good, you know. But they're basic things that has only come into our system only 30, 40 years ago. And others have had, you know, 200 years of that before us. And we've got to be allowed the opportunity to grow that, you know. So finishing, just want to, obviously acknowledge me brother and my sister, Denise and Damien, and Auntie Maud. Their work in native title is world class in my time, you know, obviously led by their elders, but the energy, you know, the build up for over those 11 years, Auntie Maud spoke about, it was every Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month for 11 years. Nothing, no money, nothing. It was just heart and soul and coming together and being led by the mob. And communication was to inform everybody. Informed consent is what we bring to the table. We speak to everybody, and it was an unreal experience because it built this where we are today, and just want to acknowledge that contribution. And I'd just like to finish now. Thank you.
Lato. Larawa, Latun Latin Yung, Travis Labat, Ceremonial Gunditjmara meeting, Linian Kukon Ken Contact Budj Bim. Gunditjmara meeting. Just acknowledge country, pay my respects as a proud Ceremonial Gunditjmara man. I always say us Gunditjmara people speak fast because we've got a lot to say. And also, we are. I mean, again, as our elders have said here, we are known as the Fighting Gunditjmara as well. So I also want to give a shout out to our elders here, Uncle Johnny, not in any particular order. Just get Auntie Laura, Auntie Tina, Uncle Johnny. There's other elders here as well with us today, representing multiple families of the Gunditjmara here. Also, as well as Auntie Eileen as well, and thank you very much for that deadly welcome to country as well. It's always nice seeing you coming back home and the welcomes that you give as well. Troy, Kurundun Yunkun Dance Group, I think I pronounced that wrong. Kundung? Yunkun? Kundung Yakin, sorry. Kundung Yakin, there you go. Dance group. So I think it'd be a round of applause for them mob as well, eh? How inspiring to see the next generation coming through, walking country, talking country and dancing up country as well. So powerful. Also as well, we have the chair is unable to be here today, so Professor Eleanor Burke, Wamba Wagia elder, who is affectionately known as Auntie Eleanor Burke. Auntie Eleanor can't join us because of sorry business, which is really sad for her, but also as our other speakers, Uncle Mukai and Auntie Donna have said as well, there's been a lot of sorry business throughout the state as well. We are losing our elders at a really rapid rate as well, and there's a lot of knowledge. I think someone referred to it, I think it was Uncle Cole, in one of the videos that we'll share that work we've done is a university. Our elders are like a university. They have so much knowledge and wisdom that they pass on as well. The chair has a deep affection and respect for Gunditjmara people. She's enjoyed the hospitality of traditional owners on many occasions throughout her life. The chair also wanted me to express specifically and acknowledge the immense contribution for Gunditjmara in the fight for land justice here in Victoria. And of course, this sentiment is expressed across to all Victorians, across the state of Victoria as well. On behalf of the chair, I would like to thank Gunditjmara people here for hosting the Yoorrook Justice Commission on your beautiful lands, or our lands, and on this historic occasion as well. Sorry, I am a little bit nervous. I don't really get to come home very often and actually speak. I get to come home a bit, but not actually speak on country as well. So having the ability to also be able to yarn up with you mob and also in front of our elders and represent my family as a proud Ceremonial Gunditjmara man and I love it as well. Big family, the Lovett family, a lot of them. A lot, too many to name actually as well. But yeah, now can I ask you to look around? Country meeting or my language, Wurrung language, speaks for itself. It tells us to listen and respond in harmonious ways. By doing this, my people have managed and cared for this beautiful landscape for thousands of years. The pristine condition of this country is one of the reasons it is now recognised by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. World Heritage Site here in Victoria. Don't need to go anywhere else. No disrespect to those other mobs across Australia. Come here to Victoria. Come down and check out the tours. Go through the Budj Bim. Check out the tours. Walk country and talk country with our elders and our tour guides as well. As a proud Ceremonial Gunditjmara man and as a commissioner of the Yoorrook Justice Commission, it is a great honour to stand here on country or meeting for the historic opening of the land justice hearings. Land injustice. Justice hasn't been done yet. We haven't got justice yet. Justice in this country is traditionally delivered in courtrooms in the cities, in a language that was once foreign to our people. And judges who came here long after us and ignored our law, customs and traditions. Yoorrook's truth-telling hearings will mark the turning point for justice in this country. We will hear evidence from First Peoples, using First Peoples languages or ways of speaking, using First Peoples law and law. Here on Gunditjmara meeting, all Victorians can learn the full story of our people and the impacts of colonisation from creation to today. This country tells us the true story of colonisation from the beginning to the end in one location. It tells us the story of how land was illegally taken, and how some land, only some land, has been returned through the sheer determination and resistance and the fight of the Gunditjmara people, some you've heard from today, and some are with us today. More than 30,000 years ago, Budj Bim erupted, revealing our ancestral creation being in the landscape, right over the back here, straight through there. The lava flow created the patchwork of waterways and wetlands, which our ancestors used to develop one of the most oldest and extensive and complex agriculture networks in the world, older than the Stonehenge and the pyramids. The system supplied enough foods to sustain our community or our people year-round in permanent settlements and allow us to trade with other clans and nations. We were happy and self-sufficient people. Then, just 200 years ago, Europeans came. They illegally took our land, our homes, and our lives. Later today, we will visit the site where Edward Henty landed in November 1834, establishing the first European settlement in what became the state of Victoria. This was the defining moment for First Peoples. It marked the end of our traditional way of life and the beginning of an unbroken line of injustice, which continues today. First Peoples' land, water and resources were illegally and forcibly taken. We were denied access and the ability to practice our culture and speak our language. Our ancestors were slaughtered in massacres. The first recorded massacre in Victoria took place at the Convincing Ground in Kilgara country, which we will visit later today. It is there that European whalers used their guns to fend off the Kilgara Gunditj people from accessing their own resources, which they had done for thousands of years prior. Despite brave resistance during the Yoorrook Wars, the Gunditjmara population was decimated in what was a highly unequal contest. Tens of thousands of years of unbroken connection and deep love for this country almost wiped out in what seemed as a blink of an eye. Then in the 1850s and 60s, those who remained were forcibly moved onto missions and reserves. If you walk through the bush southwest from here, you'll come to the old Lake Conda mission, where the government tightly controlled the lives of the Gunditjmara people. Commissioners have heard evidence about how speaking language wasn't allowed on the mission, and those who were caught had their rations cut. An uncle told Yoorrook about how more than 20 of his family members were taken from Lake Conda during the early stolen generations, having become homes for many families. The missions were then closed by the government. The families petitioned to have the land hand over to them as farming cooperative. Not only did the government deny this request, it instead handed out the land from the former Lake Conda mission to returned war veterans as part of the soldier settlement scheme in World War II. Aboriginal men who fought for Australia were excluded from the soldier settlement scheme, excluded, including Gunditjmara men and women. Uncle Johnny Lovett, sitting over here, has given evidence to the Commission before about his father's exclusion from the scheme after fighting for his country, for this country. For over 10 years, he has asked to have his father's contribution recognised. And in the same way that it was recognised by other servicemen, he has not received an answer. And still to the day, not received an answer. Sitting here today, confirming that. In 1987, the original mission lands were eventually returned to our people thanks to the fight of Auntie Sandra and Auntie Tina and many others who are standing here today as well. Over the time, the fight of the Gunditjmara has seen other parcels of traditional land returned. It is important to take a moment to acknowledge the immense and ongoing fight of First Peoples across the state of Victoria to restore land rights. The final site we will visit today is Ploughed Fields on the clifftop overlooking Portland Bay. The colonial legacy is hard to miss here, as stated by other members who have spoken here before me. with monuments and plaques lining the area along the old whaling cauldron. In fact, throughout Portland, colonial names are everywhere, on playgrounds, pubs, dog parks, senior citizens buildings, as well as street names and highways named after colonisers. Yet there is little to no acknowledgement of the Gunditjmara people's continued contribution to this area and the way we have cared for country for tens of thousands of years. I note that I would like to thank Gunditjmara Corporation for assisting with the Commission with hosting proceedings here today as well. I would specifically like to acknowledge again the elders who have continually fought hard for our people's rights to not only be upheld, but also recognised and upheld and implemented. Gunditjmara's work in the southwest exemplifies persistent advocacy for land justice for the fight of First Peoples so all Victorians can benefit. We are grateful for the privilege of using incredible facilities and being hosted at this World Heritage listed country. More than that, we acknowledge the work that your organisation has done in revitalising country, culture and language for the benefit of generations to come. Today's ceremonial remarks are the start of the 3 weeks of public hearings into land, skies and waters, the injustice. During this time, Yoorrook will hear more evidence about how the theft of land, water and resources has impacted and continues to impact First Peoples today. Commissioners will hear from a broad range of witnesses, including First Peoples, historians, organisations and associations. We will hear from government, including several ministers and the Premier, Jacinta Allen. Some of these hearings will be out on country. The Water Minister, Harriet Shing, and Uncle Brendan will give evidence in Romvale along the Murray. Premier Allen will give evidence at the old Corandurk Aboriginal Mission near Hillsville on Wurundjeri country. Just as these hearings go to the heart of the injustice, it will also showcase the diversity, strength and resistance of First Peoples in the state of Victoria. But this time, it is on our country, on our terms as First Peoples. We invite all Victorians to walk with us, to listen, to learn, and to share our history. Yoorrook Gunditjmara.
Well, my name's Damien Bell. I'm a Gunditjmara and a Bowendik, and very happy to be here today at the start of this land and justice inquiry with the Yoorrook Commission. It's very important because we've had so much taken from us, and I say that in the same breath that we've been able to have so much returned to us, primarily through the common law rights that we've fought for. No one gives you your rights, you express your rights, and it's up to the Crown to recognise that it always has and always will be Aboriginal land.
So tell us about this place.
We're at Tayrake. Gunditjmara is the clan here. Tayrake is very important to us. It's very important to us as Gunditjmara, but also to us in the state of Victoria. Out this way is when colonisation first started after the invasion, but here is also the place where we had the revelation of one of our creation beings, Budj Bim. When the revelation happened, it was a volcanic eruption of about 37,000 years ago, and we still have the language and the story for that creation story. We always talk about our stories. We have to share the story to protect the story because it's been silenced for so long. We were told to be silent. Our ancestors, our elders were told to be silent. And it's interesting because a lot of old white fellas were told to be silent as well. A good while ago, we were recording our elders, had all the equipment to do that, and our elders sort of got sick of us. So we put an ad in the paper to ask for old white people if they got stories of Tayrake. And we had an amazing response. We had people, 96-year-old people in their deathbeds wanting to share their story about Lake Condah, about Tayrake and Gunditjmara country, which was incredible. So that silence not only we were made to be silent or forced into being silent, the rest of the community was as well, the non-Aboriginal community. With the revelation of Budj Bim, the stories are 37,000 years old. The creation story is there. The language is still there for it. And because we had used new technology to working with Melbourne University to work out the stone crushing things and all the isotopes and all that kind of stuff, and they worked out 37,000 years. And all the it was published in American Geology, and they rang up for an interview, and they were sort of freaking out. They said, "Well, how do you know the creation story, and how do you have language for that?" And we said, "Well, because it was being passed down, and we know that passing down is very important for us, for who we are as part of our identity and our obligations." But it was interesting to hear that, particularly from across in America, given that they have their own First Peoples over there, and at that upper echelons of science, Western science, they're still not properly respecting what country has to say.
So it's incredible to think of a story surviving for 37,000 years and then to have science come along with the radioactive testing and confirm some aspects of that story.
Oh, definitely. It was incredible, and that wasn't our first time. When we were restoring water here, because the story of Yoorrook, it's 8,000 years old. We know that. We know that through our stories, but we also know that through Western science, through the core sampling. It wasn't here 8,000 years ago. It was a grassland. And we know that Gunditjmara ancestors constructed the lake by doing stone barriers, stone weirs in the proper places to keep the water here. So we knew that was there. And then again with the Western science, we seen how old it was. But it came time to put in a new weir in 2010 to restore the water, permanent water here. And all the hydrologists and all that come up and said, "Oh, look, the best place to put it," and this was after digital flyovers and that, and they said, "Oh, the best place to build a weir is here." And we said, "Oh, guess what? Where ancestors had built a weir.
Yeah.
The original cultural weir that you had knocked down in 1954 when you built the drain to drain the lake." So
there was that knowledge of water flows,
yes,
of the pattern of water rising and the animals responding.
well, it was built that way. The lake's built that way because we have fish traps, we have eel traps that are set at 54 metres AHD, but we also have traps set at 58 metres. So that seasonal flow of water, the water that's kept here to maintain the kuyang and then the other fish, plus the life and the village around it, is all it's all succinct. I could say that. I know when, after we put the weir in 2010, it rained, and it rained that weekend, so we knew ancestors were happy. And as this water filled back up, the water would snake across the lake and then hook up with the traditional aquaculture on the other side. So what we don't see is the channels underneath the lake, underneath the silt build-up and all that. So that technology, that cultural technology, is still there. For us to maintain what we have here, we're the Gunditjmara, we're the only ones who could do that with authority. We're the ones who can engage with other people, with institutions, with research institutions, with government agencies. We're the ones who could do that to make sure that full story's here, because it's not just a cultural lake, it's an environmental lake, it's a social lake, it does all those things, and it's an economic lake. One of the things that, even with things like native title and all that, it's still a process that keeps us out of our commercial heritage and our commercial identity. Back in the 1920s, when the government was selling all the lake up to hand back to soldier settlement, but not Aboriginal soldiers, this place out here was valued at £9,000. We did the economics on that, on how much that would be today, and we just had our annual general meeting of our traditional owner corporation, Gunditjmara, and we worked out we have equity at 42 million.
In just in the land?
just in the land and what we do.
Sorry, I mean
Yes.
land as opposed to
Land assets,
resources.
all that.
Yeah.
Also included in that is our cultural heritage items that we have repatriated from Museum Victoria the other year. They're all at home now at the keeping place. But from that £9,000 to that $42 million equity, that's basically taken us over 100 years to you wouldn't even say it's parity, because as Michael was talking about this morning, we still have things to do, and that's what we hope that the treaty will bring, to set things right, to look at parity, but parity from our perspective, not parity from what the Crown thinks we deserve, but parity about what we want to do, what we've missed out on, and what we want to do into the future.
So how do you start the conversation? And this is obviously the work ongoing, but how do you start the conversation when everything's taken and you're offered a little bit back? How do you navigate that pathway?
It's the community that has to sit down and work out what we need, but we have to work out what is possible. How do you pick and choose from the whole entire world about what your people need and what your country needs to repatriate that fairness and that future? That's a real hard question, but we've been talking about what we've wanted to do for a long, long time, even from the mission days when our elders and ancestors were concentrated onto the mission. They were asking for land back then. So that's a big part of it. But of course it has to be healthy land, because not in Gunditjmara, healthy country, healthy people. So with one of the main things we do here is to make sure we get the land back, have it returned, have it unencumbered.
Yeah.
Because they don't teach about bloody, what do you call it, land tax and all that in land rights school.
Yeah.
So you need something there. And what I spoke about when the commission was down earlier, when we put in our submissions, that unencumbered country, not only for us, but for country itself. Can the Crown remove its title, its hold, its asserted sovereignty from special places, just so that place, that country, can be there for itself?
Part of the obvious wealth of this place is the water and the restoration of the bird life and the wetlands here. So tell me about the water and who owns the water, who gets to take the water upstream, downstream, how's that work?
Well, the water was basically stolen as well. The work that we've done, in line with what our ancestors have wanted and what our elders have wanted and what our community needs, the lake it's a real physical example of water that was stolen. They drained it back in 1954. They dug the Conda drain from up around Branksholme right down here to the top of the stones to drain all that all this lake, the wetland, the Louth swamp, the Conda swamp, and they drained it all for farmlands. What happened then? We got to restore it. The main job was in 2010, and it was funny because the Crown would come down and say, "Oh, where are you going to get your water allocation from?" And we would say, "Well, we get it from our ancestors. Where do you get yours from?" And they sort of freak out and run back to the Crown. The Crown, and just acknowledge Uncle Keith. He talks about the Crown being the headless hat. We want to deal with people. We want to deal with country. With here, and it's worked so well. It's amazing that it's worked. Like we had all that knowledge that we had. Again, the cultural lake, the environmental lake, the social lake, the economic lake. We had all that knowledge go into the restoration, and we got to build the weir, which was a big infrastructure job. Because when they did the Conda drain back in 1954, they talked about that being the Victorian government's engineering marvel of the year, which was amazing. Yeah. So when we did ours, it was good. The water, there wasn't a proper water allocation for it because the water was already here. So not too much was, how would you say, the water that would come through would have come through anyway. We just collected it a bit more. So when it comes down to those, to the Crown's permits and this and that about what you can and can't do, not much was done there. So because the restoration of water here is a great benefit, not only to us but to the district, not only environmentally but economically as well, with the tourism that's drawing to the southwest of Victoria. We went through a process. So, and it's funny where governments permit processes where they could hold you back and tie you down, particularly if you're talking about traditional ownership. The government was happy to help us as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, what they considered the most disadvantaged people on earth. They were happy to deal with us as disadvantaged people, but not as traditional owners. But we are traditional owners. This is traditional country. We went through Alcoa versus owners versus with Auntie Tina and Auntie Sandra, and all the mob. We had that right there. We went through native title.
Standing to be able to.
No, it still didn't recognise it properly. With owners versus Alcoa, that cultural heritage protection side of it, that takes care of that side. But with these other things, these other permits, bylaws, all that process there, like I said, the government would help us, would be ready to help us as disadvantaged people, but not as traditional owners. After owners versus Alcoa, we went through the native title, recognised that there, all that. This place wasn't recognised for native title. It was still a state game reserve. So technically, that meant this place here was already extinguished from its native title. That was back in leading up to 2007. As we know, through the work of the Mabo family, we've had native title since 1991. But for how native title's evolving slowly and not surely, it's still got a lot there. But just that thing about permits, how government would use us, would want to work with us as disadvantaged people to meet their own box ticking, but not us, for us to be recognised as traditional owners. We found it in a couple of places, like the Victorian Fishing Authority, that regime there. Again, they had you could get a cultural take permit, but you had to demonstrate your disadvantage, not your traditional ownership. So that's replicated a lot across government. A lot's changing now, and hopefully the Yoorrook process is really going to expose that so it can be fixed properly. Keeping that there, how we get that elevated into the Australian common law is going to be a goal, because everything else is more, again, that social disadvantage that we do face, but that's the box the government also puts us in.
So just...
with water here, the licensing body on behalf of the Crown is Southern Rural Water. They operate from here right across the Gunditjmara, Monero country. We had to go through and we applied for the unallocated water that comes through the winter flow. We applied for that, and
is that because there were no other licences available?
Yes, because they're all over allocated. Well, they're beyond over allocated. What's the word beyond there?
Oversubscribed.
Oversubscribed. They, with what was left over unallocated water, and that was part of the winter flow and all that kind of stuff, we applied for that. We talked to Southern Rural Water. We talked to the government about we still need to have water here, because there's still a lot more places we want to restore permanent water to. So we got allocated, I think it was a couple of years ago. We went through the process. When Gunditjmara, they had some allocations. We had some allocations, I think 2 gigalitres, something like that. Gunditjmara's got some more. It's good that that's happening, but again, we're at the tail end of it, because all that oversubscription that happened for squatters, for colonisations, all that, we missed out on that. So what we're still doing now here is sort of dragging it all back.
Yeah.
And it's you'd have to think, is government allowed to do that because it's an environmental benefit rather than a traditional benefit?
The restoration of the waterlands has ecosystem benefits.
Yes.
Right? Not just in this immediate vicinity, but more broadly. And we're sitting in front of the
Kuyang.
Yep. The tanks. So, is there a valuing of that restoration of the environment and the ecosystem more broadly?
There is, and the Crown's catching up with it. They're only sort of recognising it, sort of not that, what's that nature thing they call it? You got the eco benefit, but there's also what they say now, that nature, that
Innate benefit.
nature services. The benefits of natural services, what it provides to society.
Yep.
It will be interesting, and that sort of over the past couple of years, the Victorian government was working on integrated water management in suburban areas like Warrnambool and Hamilton and all that. This place didn't really fit into it because it was outside of those regional urban areas. But we said, well, if you're saving water there, you're leaving some more water for the country, so we're not dragging on that. So that nature benefit, there's a proper word for it now. They've got a whole thing now. It's a whole.
We'll think of it.
Yeah, how we think about the benefit that it provides. We need to put in those indicators. What does this mean for traditional ownership? What does this mean for traditional country? What does this mean for cultural strengthening? Because it's incredible out here. Since we've restored it, the Gunditjmara were deadly before we restored Tay Rake, so we're even more deadly now.
Well, you've got a potential income stream here, right, from the eel product, and I see the forestry around. There's along the coast the wind farms, the turbines turning. So there are resources here.
Yes.
In the land.
And they're planning out in the ocean as well.
Yeah.
That for all the renewable energy, and our communities talked about it in depth. We've had symposiums about it, about the impact of this new generation of renewable energy and infrastructure that's coming back to be impacted on our land as well.
Yep.
That still takes country away. We had to think about and it's terrible talking about it from a traditional owner perspective, but what's the gross benefit? What's the net benefit for the world? Yep. We still have to give up part of our country.
Yep.
Even though it's for wind farms, wind energy, solar. It's something we've case by case it comes up, and it's something we have to consider because we've got this place runs off solar. We made that a point. The keeping place up at the mission, that runs off solar. We've made those decisions there, not only to save some money, but also to demonstrate sustainability.
Yep.
Because out here, we've had this infrastructure out here for 8,000 years, and it's kept us going. The only thing that impacted on us through all the previous climate changes, through the tsunamis we've had in the past, through all the bushfires that was there after our cultural burning, the thing that's really impacted on us is invasion and colonisation.
Yeah.
But we've survived that. But we need to be engaged because the renewable energy question, it's here, it's happening, and we need to be engaged with that, not just as a stakeholder. That's the other thing. We're not stakeholders. It's everyone else with their stakes in our country. We're the rights holders. And the Crown really needs to recognise that. The managed investment scheme that the Commonwealth Government put out for all the blue gums across the southwest, all across Gunditjmara country, there was no benefit in it for us. Those investors got 150% back on their investment. So money for nothing, that kind of stuff. With the renewables, with carbon, the state still hasn't defined who gets the carbon rights from Crown land.
Yeah, so passive sequestration of carbon through forest growth and
Well, the forest that we have. 'Cause-
restoration of the wetlands, things like that.
Yeah, they. We can do that. We can work that out.
Yep.
We did feasibility a long while ago, and we didn't want to lock up our land for 20 years to get that benefit.
Yep.
But then you have that scale isn't there. If we were to, they said, oh well, if you did monoculture, you'd be right. And I'm thinking, no, we just want our bush. But then you hear the success stories like the Savannah burns, which is incredible. That's a real model that we need to look at here in Victoria, because what we do here, if we make enough money to keep our mob working on country, that's deadly. If we make $1 million extra, that'll be even deadlier. But to look at that model and that scale of land that we need to do that, because when you think of the opportunities we have, like through the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation, which we've done a lot of work here about returning land, all up we've returned say about 3,000 acres along the Budj Bim lava flow, but up north they got millions and millions of hectares returned. And you think, I mean, there's all scales and different stories and different mobs and all that. But if they're going to have that principle, you just think back and you think about with all the investment that's going into renewables, and you see how many wind farms we have down here and what they're proposing off the coast. There'd be a lot more white people making money off it than what we would be, and it's our country.
Yep.
What are some of the things you're most proud about when you look out here? I mean, you've been around a long time, huh?
Oh, it's just that we're still here, that we have this incredible community, that we still have the elders that we do. Just thinking of what Michael was talking about before, we have a lot more people reaching a good age. We have a lot more great-grandmothers. We have a lot more great-grandmothers. We have a lot more grandmothers and grandfathers, of course. And uncles and aunties that are here looking after our mob growing up. That's great, and to have our country. One of the most important things we've had is to be able to get our own land back, and our mob grew up on that. That's coming back from when we would go out to the cemetery, then the return of the mission, and then losing some land as well, which is a hard lesson. For a First Nations mob, when you lose land, but that just resolves you the next time around. You got to look after things. Yep. So what we've done here, it's all very proud. I'm very proud of our families. But we need we need to level up, particularly with housing. We need that to happen. We need that investment, because the housing crisis. We've always been in housing crisis, but when the white fellas get in it, we get some action. So to be a part of that, to invest in new housing, whether it's home ownership or social housing or affordable housing, we really need that down here. And I know all the mobs need that, because we have the right to live on our land, and we got the same rights as everyone else. We have a different perspective on those rights because we've always been here.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey guys, welcome here to Gunditj. Gunditj is Gilgara Gunditj country, country that I belong to, so welcome. To Gilgara Gunditj country, my tongue is not behaving today. I grew up just a kilometre or so up the road here at a place called Little Dunmore. My nan was born and raised on the mission. My grandfather was a bit of a rebel, so he never went on the mission, apart from obviously when he met Nan. For church, he was baptised over there. With my father when Dad was 14 years old, would you believe it? So Pop waited all that time to be baptised. And then Dad met Mum. Both of them were singers, both of them guitarists. And they got married and I was born. So this is the place I come home to from the hospital. We did move around a little bit because the house that we lived in up here was one of the houses from the mission. Pop put it on board by board onto a horse and, what do you call them? Horse and dray, and carried it board by board over to Little Dunmore. It was a 2-roomed house. By the time Pop had finished, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms. Another 3 bedrooms in a shed beside the house. And I lived there. I grew up with my grandparents, my great uncles, my aunts, my cousins, my uncles, and my brothers and sisters until 1969 we moved into Hayward. Dad decided that Mum needed a break because we had no electricity, no running water. Our water came from Killara, Dulles Creek down here. Batteries were used for the wireless, and it only went on at certain times to save the batteries. Dad and Dave and the news in the evening. So, yeah, I grew up with Dad and Dave. The rest of the time it was stories beside the lounge room fire, the front room fire as we called it back in those days. The older cousins tried to scare us young ones. When Pop rebuilt the house, he used old car windows for the windows in the house. And you know how the windows go down like that and they leave a bit of a gap? Well, my bedroom had one of those in it. And at night time, the bats would come in out of the pine tree. And Dad always said, don't let them get in your hair, I'm going to have to cut it all off. So the sheet went over my head, and that's how I slept at night time. But it was a great upbringing. This whole lava flow was my playground on Sundays because we had chores to do on Saturday. From Monday to Friday, of course, it was school for me until my sisters joined me. Yeah, I wish my kids were given that opportunity to grow up like I did. It was the best kind of upbringing. My grandfather, my great uncles, my uncles would walk us through this and tell us the stories. This place for us is a men's business area. So when I started doing tours in Gunditjmara, I had to go and ask my brother, if I was permitted to come out here. He said, yep, but only if you stay on the tracks. Now that really cheesed me off because you know where the best punyak grows, the grass that we use for our weeding? Right here. And I can't get it. And I can't ask other people to get it for me. It's a women's craft, so I certainly couldn't ask my brother to go and get it for me because men aren't allowed to touch our grass. So, yeah, Uncle Charlie used to work on here, and I guess it's like today. When a house comes down, you go and pick up the bricks and the iron and everything else. So he used to pick up the rocks from here so they could take them down to the crusher that was on Decibel Road for the road surfaces. Uncle Charlie was born in 1900. Dad was born in 1925. So we certainly got to enjoy a lot of the stories from that period of time. Nan was born and raised on the mission. So, you know, she was taught that don't tell the stories, don't sing the songs, although there was one Sunday school song that we learnt in language. Basically, they were told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it on the missions. Pop really went on there. So we were so lucky with that because he continued to tell us the stories. Even though Nan would be yelling at him to stop telling us those stories because she was scared the police would come and take us away. And the same with Auntie Con when she was teaching us how to weave baskets. You know, it took me 3 months to convince her. But still, when she taught us, the blinds had to be down and the doors locked. So no one could see what we were doing. She was absolutely amazed when we were so proud of these wonky little baskets that we were making. And we showed them to everyone, which is one of the reasons I still continue to teach basket weaving here. If Auntie Con had not have shown us, we would have lost that part of our culture completely. So my daughters weaved, my granddaughters weave, and you can be damn sure that my great-granddaughters are going to learn how to weave as well. But I'll teach anyone, apart from men, how to weave baskets. So this feels like coming home, really. So come look at our beautiful Gunditjmara country. I mean, it's almost as good as Kirib. Almost. I'd better say that. Yeah. Too many Kirib Gunditjmara here for me not to say that. All right. So, shall we take a walk? What was it from? And maybe violet. This is our seasonal calendar here. So let's find, where are we? March. Waterholes are drying up and the creeks are at their lowest. And then it tells you what food are available. And this was developed with our work with Melbourne Uni. And it goes right around for the whole entire year and the seasons that we have. What we're doing now is working with Melbourne Uni. So what do the yabbies and the frogs and the turtles need to stay alive during this drying up period? We're looking over here. So that's a drying out period. This is a fattening period. So again, we're looking at the things that the animals and the fish need during that period of fattening up and what's available in the landscape now. So we have flowering time. You can all come in and read this for yourself. It'll save you from talking. And I'll answer questions. How about that?
So the observations of your knowledge and the lining up with these months, have you seen that changing with climate change?
Yes, most definitely. Particularly with because I'm a weaver, I see it particularly with our punyard. It's drying out earlier, it needs to be burnt off earlier, and it doesn't always fit with Decca and their burning off times.
So how does that affect your teaching of those skills in that culture?
We work well with Decca, and if we need to do a burn out here, although I'm not allowed to gather the grass, they will work with us.
I mean with teaching the young ones?
Yeah, the young ones.
The alignment of the seasons.
Yeah, when the punyard's at its best, which is just before Christmas, it's starting to really dry out now, so it's almost ready to be burnt. And we're in March. The burning period when I was growing up was back in May. So, you know, it's 2 months earlier now.
Big difference.
It is a big difference. Yeah. And as the land starts to gather some more moisture, the punya will start shooting up again and become ready to weave with. If you happen to take the time out and go down to Tarandara, around the car park, we have punya there that's had access to a lot of water, and it is absolutely beautiful to weave with now, but you can see it start really drying out as well. Yeah. Okay.
Do you have
I'm
a
ready.
favourite time of year?
Me?
Yeah,
Autumn.
autumn. What's special about autumn for you?
I love seeing the different colours in the landscape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I mean, practically, it's almost, winter, but then you could have winter down here any day of the year.
If it rains and freezing south winds.
Yep. Yep. You know, I mean, not
Yeah,
last week, the
there we
week
go.
before, I think it was 32 one day and it poured rain the next.
Water rain the next year.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, this is great, yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly to pass on the stories but differently. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Melbourne Uni, of course, together with Gunditjmara, won an award, a national award, last year for the work that the jury did here.
Which part of Melbourne Uni worked with you on this?
All parts.
All parts?
Yeah, we have engineers to whatever's going.
Okay.
Come down here. Yeah.
That's great.
What's your birth month? Come and see what happens in there.
Yeah, let's have a look. Eggs are available.
Got here because the 4 seasons,
Very quick.
early wet, big wet, you know,
Flowering,
different.
yep.
See how they're staggered, and it's a blackfella thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Because this 4 seasons is not applicable to us.
No.
And I guess, you know, with this all these new changes, how much of an impact? Is it going to stay like this now?
No,
is
it's
the
probably
winter
going-
now going to be in September maybe? You know, like the big wet?
We had the big wet in September now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
everything's sort of pushed back now because of the changing of the climate.
Yeah.
So what we knew, you know, big wet would happen in August, July.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
doesn't-
necessarily
no.
happening in that time now. It's more moved around to.
Yeah, September. Well,
Yeah.
a couple of years
or
ago,
even earlier.
Kalara, the river, yeah, it overflowed from September, October, November, December. We couldn't get on that country until January.
Yep. How long ago was this?
That 3 years ago.
Yeah.
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 So we're kind of expecting the same again because we haven't had much rain this year
Does
at all.
that line up with the
If we get any more rain.
the COVID period, the 3 years? Because I know that there was a lot of changes in the environment right around the world when there was lockdowns.
Oh, wow.
That was also happening. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but it wasn't. Everyone was locked down. They couldn't use their
So I might
gadgets.
ask you, what changes have you seen since you've done this study and this work?
This work's not that old.
Yeah,
And as I said, we're still building on it.
yeah,
We want to make this big tier thing.
yeah.
But I don't know how we're going to present it yet. To show what kind of food and how that food has changed over time. Yeah,
It's hard, isn't it?
it's hard.
We've got fast changes
Yeah,
and old ancient knowledge,
yes.
and then suddenly it's thrown out.
It's thrown out, yeah.
Yeah,
I know Pop used to supervise the men at Nan's request to go down and burn the grass. And that was always in May, very early June, no later than that. And I remember that because I would go down and watch, and Pop used to sit on this stump. And it was still warm enough for snakes to be active. And one tiger snake just wrapped itself around the stump and waited for Pop to sit on it. Yeah, so, yeah.
So the dances that we saw this morning, there was a dance around the sustainability, giving the berry
Berries.
seeds back.
Yeah.
So can you share something about sustainable practices of harvest and
Yeah. Again, I'll talk about the grass, the punya.
Yep.
always leave the seed where you find the grass. Don't take more than what you need. Very, very, you know, it's like you're going out looking for a duck egg or a swan's egg. You only take one. You go on to a next nest and take another one, depending on how large your family is, because the swan heel egg is really big. Nan used to make omelettes with them. Yeah. And it fed a lot of people, a lot of kids.
But then there's the animal has its children for the next. Yeah.
Yep.
And was that the practice with the eel farming too?
The eel farming, yes. Same with the tupon, the blackfish. Yeah. Only take what you need. But then again, it depended on who was available, the men, who was available to go and put the eel nets in. And then everything was always shared right around the community. Even though we lived out here, we still shared with the people that were still at the mission, shared with Greenvale, where all the Lovetts were, and they reciprocated. So even though we were stretched far apart, that communal thing still happened.
Did those different communities like share stuff back?
Yeah.
With, you know,
Other,
more here?
yeah, yeah. I mean, Uncle Charlie had a huge veggie patch. Those veggies were shared around it as well. Yeah. So that's how it was. You know, moved into Hayward. We were the last, the blacks to move into town. And the same principles still applied. It's like, you know, when you're living as a mob, it's not the mother's responsibility to look after the children. It's all the aunts around. And that happened in Hayward. So if you saw a kid running around the streets and misbehaving, you could pull them up, send them home. Yeah, and they would have to tell their mum why they were sent home. But that mum could also pull up my kids and send them home to me. So they always had someone there watching over them. It doesn't matter whether it was their aunt or someone else within our community.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. And I'm finding that that sort of practice is slowly leaving us because we've got a lot of people who are Gunditjmara but don't have any connection to country or cultural practices, the traditional law coming into town. So we're slowly losing that. Yeah. And that's not their fault. No, unfortunately. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We were one of the very lucky families not to have that happen to us. But I was going through the archives in North Melbourne when I was doing research on my family group, and I found a letter that went to the policeman in Hayward at that time, who was sent out to check up on us and take us away from our family. And then I found his response: those children are well taken care of, they're going to school, they're clean, they're being fed well.
So this was about your family?
Yeah.
How amazing.
Yeah. And I kind of thought, well, Mum and Dad never told us any of that. Yeah. But, yeah, that's how it was. I mean, and that's when we lived in this big extended family group. Yeah. So I think you're saying
about this area around here.
Yeah, it comes to Watha. All right, we can.
Go,
People are ready.
Yeah.
You can move on.
Yep.
Look at this. Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
you've not seen this one before?
No, I have, but I mean, still, every time you see it, you see something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you can look at it 1,000 times and you're like, oh, I didn't notice that before, you know? And
Yeah. This is one that really operated in the rise and fall of the water.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at a fish trap here. It's got 3 traps. And it operated on the rise and the fall of the water. So the lowest one is where you'd put your eel basket first. And as the water rose, you'd block that off with some stones and put your eel basket in the next one. When the water came over the top of that, you'd put it in the other one. So you were continually catching the fish here, no matter how high the water got. Because once one fish trap flooded out, the eels would just go over the top, become useless. And that's why this is divided into three. Yeah, we think this creek had a French name. I did know it, but I've forgotten it. So it's part of the source of water for this comes from Lake Conda, Tayrak. Winds itself through the lava flow, down here and eventually back into Clara. Yeah. So, Dad, when I was growing up, would catch fish here. There's an old smoking tree down here that we'll take a look at. It's got hit by lightning. And that's where they cured the eels. Very simple, I just do it in a pot outside now. Yeah. Probably my favourite part because it's on Gunditjmara country and that's where I belong. Yeah. All right? Any questions? I can't find it.
That took me like there's
So just saying, this was a smoking tree. If you look carefully, you can see where the sticks went across the trunk, the hollow trunk, where they hung the eels. Light a fire down the bottom. I tell you what, cherry balat, and there's another another tree that's really good for smoking our eels. It leaves them with a really nice sweet smoked taste. Actually, it's both of the trees that I used this morning. The she oak, yeah, it has that really nice smoky taste, and the cherry balat for the sweetness. This is a really old tree. I know that Uncle Charlie and Dad used to smoke eels in this.
When they're smoking, is there like a fire in the bottom, in the middle of the tree, or how's it?
It's smoke.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the centre. Yeah. And then they close it off with a piece of bark, or something similar. So once the smoke was happening, then it dries up. No gaps in the tree, so the smoke was contained. Yeah, real hole down the bottom.
what they hang the eels with?
A stick, liangle.
But hanging down, was it?
Yeah,
over?
put it through their bottom jaw. Oh, put the stick through the eel's bottom jaw and hang them like that. Guts and all in them. Yeah.
How do they do it today in the centre?
I don't know how they do it down there. Yeah, but they do have a smoker.
They do, don't they, Maud? They do.
Yeah. Yeah.
A normal tree that gets struck by lightning, the water gets sucked out of them. So for this to be still standing now, it's special. There's something in it to be still young.
It's a Gilgar tree. Gilgar.
Didn't take long
tree.
for the competitive edge to come out.
Oh. Once upon a time you would have had to walk through snake-infested reeds to get here. Yeah. Have a look at around the board and you'll see some of the birds that we find out here with our language name on them.
How do you pronounce this word?
You don't pronounce the G.
Yeah, so it's a silent G. So
Yeah.
Maud was saying that we've got all the birds here, and they're pretty much all the same birds that we've got that are starting to come back on country as well. So, but with a lot of them, they've got their own meanings and their own stories that they've got. So with them stories, there's good stories, but there's also these bad stories, but there's also these funny stories as well. Well, the one that I love is beetroot, which is the plover. And I'm not sure if, as a kid, when Dad lived in Haywood, we had these sitting on our paddocks. And we used to go run and touch their eggs, but they used to swoop. But when they were swooping, they'll make that annoying sound, but that funny sound, going brr, 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 brr. And they fly and they swoop you at the same time. So this lad here, he was fishing for the eels, and he had a spear and he was walking along, spearing them. But he noticed when he was making noises, the eels were popping their heads up and looking at him. So when he noticed that, he started making that sound, and they started popping their heads up. Then he was like getting selfish and had 2 spears. So I was throwing his spears and then throwing them onto the banks. He was a gutsake, saying, "Yep, this is all mine." But within our family kinship system that we have, is that you only take what you take, and the rest you have to stay. So, stays there. That's the way of life, and how we always got eels all the time. Because when we're living in the stone huts, you got up to 4 to 5 people. That's thousands. That's a small village. So you got to save some. But he was a gutsake, so he was throwing them back. The old people started to notice what he was doing. So they were like, "Oh, we got to tell this fella, like, he can't go and do that." So what they did is that they turned him into this fella, the bird, the mask-winged plover. So as you notice on the bottom of the wings, you can see that he's got spurs. There's poisonous spurs on those wings. So when he's flying and he swoops, that's the 2 spears that he was holding, and he's there flying and going. So that's him. So that's my favourite sort of story. But everyone's got a story. But they also got totem names as well. So the boys and girls have got their names as well. They have to go and protect that animal, look after that animal. It's like my son, he's 1 year old now, but he crawls around like a koala. So what we gave him is that nickname, Wingkill. So, but he has to look after that koala and make sure that he's all right. But everyone's got that sort of naming, sort of totem name. So, yeah. But it's my favourite.
Where all the Phragmites is. So the sinkhole would fill, the fish would go into there, the sides here were dug out to create this water flow, and a fish net would be placed up there at the top near the sinkhole. So another way of catching fish, taking the side out from the sinkhole, and then the rest of the water flows down here and down around into the swamp. So heaven only knows how old these things are out here. We've never done an archaeology excavation. We have at the house up the track that we'll be stopping at, but not here on country. I did the Cert 4 in Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Management about 14 years ago, and then I went on and started my archaeology degree. And then I had a heart attack, so that stopped that cold in its tracks. I still have this fascination for archaeology, and one day we'll get enough funds to have a closer look at places like this, the place that we have down at Tarandara. If you get a chance to call in and have a look at Tarandara, it's signed. The signs are a bit wonky because we didn't have a say in them. But we haven't done any excavation work down there either. So I'm not really, I'd love to know how old it is, but I don't want anyone to touch it. So I need some magical man to come along and tell me how old that is without moving any of the stones. Not possible, but yeah. maybe not in my lifetime. Yeah, so this was a great place for Dad and Uncle Charlie, my great uncle, to come down, collect eels for us, to collect tupons and blackfish. If you've never tried a tupon, they are so yum. They're probably, you know, I love eel, but I love tupon better. And I haven't had any for ages. We used to collect their eggs and then cook them in a little bit of dripping at that time, a little bit of salt, and so yum. I can still taste it. I haven't had any since I was about 8 though, so yeah. Okay. Well, any questions? We're going down to Fresh and Salty, then onto a house, and then from there you'll go down to the convincing ground. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love sharing this country.
It's great. It's a beautiful country.
It is. Yeah. All right.
Thanks,
Oh, you're right. No, my pleasure. Yeah.
Can I pass around?
Yeah. Not to the men though.
Yep.
I might use it later in weaving.
Yeah.
Huh?
Thank you.
Yeah, Hunter, come in. Like straw.
Yeah. So all you need to work a basket with that is a leg bone of a kangaroo sharpened to a point on the stones and the shoulder blade to flatten the reed out so you don't cut your fingers. You can flatten it just with your nails, but no. Pardon?
It'll muck your manicure up.
Well, I mean, I don't have one.
So do you weave them green as that, or do you let them dry?
We leave them to dry for maybe 24 hours, and then we'll weave with it. And then grass that we've had longer, we use that in the tail. So you have 2 pieces, you have a tail and a working piece, your kangaroo bone, a shoulder blade, that's all you need to weave. There's no knots in it, and you just work it.
And as it, once you've weaved with that much water in it, and as it dries, does it change shape or?
No, this punyard has great properties. If it starts to get a little bit loose, just chuck it in some cold water and it becomes firm again. And it doesn't matter how old it is. I've done it with 20-year-old baskets. Just toss it in the water, becomes green again, it's fit for use.
That's so cool.
No, it doesn't become green again, it becomes tightened, it tightens up.
So these were for the women's baskets?
No, the women weave the baskets.
Yeah.
After they're finished, particularly with the eel baskets, they then belong to the men. So, as usual, women do all the hard work.
And the traps as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, when the men, you know, they carry it over their shoulders, they'll wear away a little bit, then they'll bring it back to us, to men for them. They'll take it away again because it's theirs. Kilgour Gunditj women were traded on how well they weave. So if you sometimes like me and have a really wonky thing, you know, I'd probably get a tiny little bit of flit for it. My uncle would trade me for that tiny little piece of flit. It wasn't Dad's responsibility, you know, if we were still trading, it would have been my uncle's. And that's the stuff favoritism between kids. So your uncles and your aunts were the ones that raised you to stop any favoritism coming on. Yeah, if I could weave really, really well, I might get a piece of worked greenstone, an axe head. Yeah, So depending on how well you weaved, they'd trade you off. Then you'd go and live with the men on their country, but your kids will still have your rights and interests on your mother's country. Yeah. So I'm going to claim that one day. I'm going to go to England and claim the rights and interests. Where am I? Yeah. Some idiot come down here, chop the ears off the pigs and let them loose here. So we could go pig hunting down this way. Can't use the dogs because they don't have their ears for the dogs to latch on to. So with Parks Victoria and Dika, we sometimes get funded for a shoot for deers and pigs down here. I guess they've knocked off about 2,000 deer so far, and not as many pigs, because pigs tend to lay under the branches during the daytime, come out in the evening. Yeah. So that's our biggest problem. Our second biggest problem here is koalas, and you've all seen what koalas can do to trees. Not these trees, there's a wattle. But as we drive through, you'll see the trees and how much the koalas have killed them. And it's actually their urine that kills the trees. Yeah.
So we're at the place, this is traditional lands of the Kilgara Gunditj that lived and occupied this land. And Kilgara was one of the 59 clans of the Gunditjmara nation. And they lived and occupied here, and that was a family, an extended family that lived here. And when Henties had come through, when the whalers from Tasmania were coming up, they would come and they would stay, and they were stealing the women, but they would go and they would leave, so people's life would come back to being normal. But when the Henties come through, it was a different story. The Henties had come through, and it was just the whole society was just shattered. But in this place here, Henty had established the whaling station, and during that time, one of the whales had beached here, and of course the Kilgar mob come here to feast on the whale, and what the whalers had said was, no, that's not your whale. And the mob said, no, well, it is. We've always done this. They would send up smoke signals for the broader mob to come in and have this big feast on whale, and they would be here for days eating whale. And this time, the whalers went away and they got their guns and they shot them. And they shot them, and there was only the two survivors that run up to the hill behind us.
Mount Clay.
To the Mount Clay, yes. Gunditj mob lived up there.
Mount Clay, yeah.
Yeah, so they were living up there, so they ran up there and lived up there. And it was only when George Robinson, who was engaged as a Aboriginal protector, they had told him the story of what happened here, and he recorded it. And it was the first Aboriginal massacre that was recorded in the history books. In the journals of George Robinson's. Not that it was ever spoke about. They'd done a lot of stories to say what really happened here didn't happen here. That's how I know it was just the whalers. This is where they would fight out and call it the convincing grounds. But it was the massacre side. It was the massacre of a whole family group, except the two survivors that run up and lived with the Gunditj mob on Mount Clay.
Yeah.
So, knowing that, and we all grew up with that, and Auntie Tina was one of the ones that would all tell us that story, and so it was really important. And back in the 2000, the local government were going to open this road up here. So this was the old coach road from Port Fairy, so it come down through here. So they're going to reopen it. And we said, no, well, hang on, you've got to be mindful of the convincing grounds, Aboriginal massacre site, which is protected. It was protected under the Aboriginal, under the Commonwealth Heritage Act.
Yes.
And that Commonwealth Heritage Act come about because Auntie Tina and Sandra Onus took on Alcoa across here. You can just see Alcoa across there back in the 1980s. And they took them to court and ended up in the High Court. And the High Court recognised Gunditjmara's special interest in their cultural heritage, and that was a High Court decision.
Yep.
From that come the, they were trying to, they did the legislation, the Victorian legislation to protect heritage, and the Victorian government said, no, bugger off with your legislation, we're not doing it. So Clyde Holding at that time took it to the Commonwealth.
Yes. Yeah.
And they put it in the Commonwealth Aboriginal heritage legislation. There was a part 2 that was put into that legislation for Victoria only. And it had 2 components to it. The first one was to have Aboriginal people as the decision makers for their cultural heritage. It was their decision how their cultural heritage was being managed. And the other one was to have inspectors. And you could be an inspector, you'd have to do the compliance training, then you could be an inspector. But it was about to have inspectors so that they had that power to stop. They could put an emergency declaration on Aboriginal heritage that they thought was under threat. So you had the power to go in and stop any immediate threat to cultural heritage. And that was to stop people throwing themselves in front of the bulldozers, because that's what they had done throughout the Alcoa fight. They were throwing themselves in front of the bulldozers to stop the destruction of heritage over on the Alcoa side. So back to 2000, when we were dealing with the state government, the local government, in protecting the convincing grounds, this place here, we had the local government do a cultural heritage management plan for here, and it had planning and how to manage this and protect the heritage, but also planning measures in it. And that was the council's report, and they had that. But all they did with that was just shelve it. So back come 2000, the town planner at the time issued a permit to bring in the bulldozers here and start digging here. And yeah, I got the phone call and come out, and there was all digging, and I said, what are you doing? You can't be doing this. It was really, I was really angry, because he said, oh no, I can do that. I said, no, you can't get a permit to do this without us knowing. So it ended up in BCAT. I had to go around the next day and see Auntie Tina, Sandra, Auntie Betty, and tell them what had happened here to the convincing grounds. I went and got Mum and come down and seen the landowner and said, what are you doing? And he said, oh no, I'm just doing wetlands. And the lad that was with him come out and said, no, we're building here. And I said, well, you can't build here. So we was lucky to stop the development and have land in this area. When they do subdivisions, they have to set aside a portion of that land, only a small portion, for public use. So that they did that, and that was this area here. And it's not the extent of the convincing grounds, but it's to recognise and acknowledge the convincing grounds. So it ended up in VCAT. It was again another you get threats and you get abused for standing up and protecting heritage, as they did back in the 1980s. With the Alcoa fight, and it's still, it's whenever we try as First Nations to do these things, this is what we come up against all the time, isn't it, Aunt?
Yes, full on. Well, even today, you go shopping. Like I went shopping the other day in one of the stores here, and she was so rude, the young lady that was serving me. She asked me what I really wanted, and I told her what I wanted, and she said, well, what do you want to do about it, you know? And I said, I want to buy it. And she just walked off. Just walked off and left me. So it was racial discrimination, and it's still today. They're really rude. And this is my hometown. I've lived here all my life, you know. Saunders family, big family, same as Lovett family, big families we are in this area. But there is a really horrible feeling when you walk down the street. You know you're liable to get run over by a car or someone's going to throw something at you. It's really scary. So I get a lot of death threats from different people, like silent phone calls and all that sort of stuff. And it's really scary. It's scary. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. I know you guys are here to listen to what I say, because you are a beautiful lot of people, you know, but there is racial discrimination in this town. Okay?
So even when we sort of get things in place and have those things, doing it through a legal process, things still get hijacked on us. We still get
Yeah.
So they come out here and they can just do that. We did.
Yeah.
We had another issue that we had was the Crown River frontages. The leases on those were held by the adjoining landowners, and they lifted them so that the recreational fishermen could go and camp and fish there. And when we go to do something like that, we have to go through native title and spend 20 years and thousands of dollars in court costs.
That's the one.
And yet that come about because an MP made an electoral promise to the recreational fishermen that they could lift the leases on those Crown River frontages and allow camping and fishing going outside the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act to do that. And it's just, again, this discrimination. Even when we got the rights, we're just discriminated against again. It's forever. You're forever having to stand and fight and argue and prove yourself again and again and again. I think the biggest thing was, the biggest reality for all of us was the referendum and the outcome. And at least we know where we sit. Yes. And it's given a lot of cowards confidence to be racist.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to live through every day. Every day we've got to live through it. Even when we go down the path of the legal path, we still don't get the proper outcome like we should.
Yeah.
Yes. I reckon we're done. Unless Uncle John, you want to talk about Gunditjmara?
Yes.
Our connection?
Yes.
Yes.
And just reflecting back on what Tina was saying, Denise was saying, there's always some sort of
Always one, huh?
you know, just can't help themselves. And we always have to justify us being here, you know. But the thing is, and they haven't woken up to it yet, we're in no one else's country but our own, and everyone's in our country, you know. And I think the sooner people get the gist of that, the better off everything will be. And going back to the yes-no vote, well, you know, 800,000 Aboriginals, 1 million Aboriginals, 25 million non-Aboriginals, how are we going to win anything? You know, it's a numbers game put up by the government. And it helps the rednecks and everyone else to be come out front and voice their opinion on how and who we should be and what we are and all that sort of thing, you know.
What we're entitled to.
Yeah, what we're entitled to,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
So it's pretty hard. I grew up in a pretty rough environment in regards to racism. I grew up in Hamilton. They call it the wool capital of the world. We was mainly the only family there, and it was 10,000 people, and you'd walk into a pub, and although you lived there, but the drinkers would put down the glasses and turn around and have a look at you to say, well, you know, what are you doing here? You know. But and there was always the racial snipes at us and me and my brothers, and we liked a little bit of physical stuff too, and we never backed away, and we were, the three of us were all fighters, all boxers, and all that sort of thing, and so we sort of we didn't mind the sort of handing out a little bit of retribution to the people, and we'd come back next day if they wanted it to, and that's the way it was. But not only here, this happened in all Aboriginal communities across. Right across, because that was the attitude of white people with Aboriginal people. And you know, when the Queen came in 56 and Shepparton and Mooroopna are 4 k's apart, and when she drove across the highway, they put hessian bags up so the Queen couldn't see the Aboriginals down there on Dash's Flat. Well, I married one of them women down there on Dash's Flat, you know, and we were married for 31 years. That's Betty. And you know, so there was all that sort of stuff that was happening, and it's never ever really been recognised by the wider community as to what Aboriginal people really had to put up with, you know. And we talk about a lot of things, and I'm going to talk about Gunditjmara soon. But the thing is that we talked about soldier settlement and things like that out at Conda, and my father and 3 of his brothers, his grandfather, were the only 4 men in the whole of the British Empire to serve in 2 world wars at once. And when they applied for soldier settlement, they got nothing. He had 37,000 non-Aboriginals got soldier settlement. They also got 1,000 acres of Lake Conda, which my father and his brothers should have got. I've been fighting that for, someone said 10 years, it's probably been a bit more, it's about 15 years or so. And I've still got no relevant sort of anything to hang my hat on to say, you know, that I've achieved anything. But the thing is, 2017 was a 100-year celebration of Anzac. I was in Port Augusta. Port Augusta is the second most racist town in Australia. It is also the second language spoken in Port Augusta is English, which makes you feel good when you're walking downtown and you hear all groups from different areas all talking in their language and little ones and all that sort of thing. I sort of put myself up front, and I went and met with the mayor and told him who I was, and I told him the history about my father and his brothers and the Lovett family from the First World War right through to Afghanistan, 21 of them. And Captain Reginald Saunders is a relation of mine and all that sort of thing. And so they asked me to speak at the RSL club, and that was a feather in the cap, so to speak, because Port Augusta's second most racist town in Australia, asking this old fella here to speak, and I got up and I spoke, and it was good. And in case you're wondering what the first most racist town in the country is, it's Kalgoorlie. So there you have the both of them, and I lived in both of them, fought in both of them, and been around that area. So I've seen racism a lot. I had an altercation with one bloke in Port Augusta because he he bought some gold off two old ladies, Aboriginal traditional ladies came in from the desert and they had gold, and he bought 2 pieces of gold probably as big as my thumbnail off them, and he gave them $2. So him and I locked heads straight away. We locked horns straight away, and I took the gold off him and give him his money back, and give the gold back to the ladies, you know. But that sort of thing's still happening in Port Augusta today. It's still happening all over the place, you know. And Aboriginal people right across this country have never ever really been given the respect that they deserve. It's so hard. It's so hard when I go to a lot of communities now, and I just lost a sister who had a Order of Australia a few months ago, my traditional sister, and she fought a lot of battles too, and Maralinga and all that sort of thing, and we done stuff there. But getting back to this country here, you know, it's you're on the sea, you can smell the difference, you can smell the sand. You're at Lake Conda, you could smell the difference there, you could smell the freshness, and you could hear the wildlife, and you've seen the eagle up there this morning when the kids were dancing. And so there's a spiritual thing connecting Aboriginal people, and not only, I should say, white people as well, you know. They get a bit of a kick out of this too as well. You know, I wasn't going to come down here. I wouldn't have been here today. I got up yesterday morning, and I do a lot of country music, and I travel, and I just said to myself, well, no, I'm not going to do anything today, so I think I'll go for a drive. And I grabbed Bob, my dog, and chucked him in the truck, and we went down to Bendigo Way and Maryborough. And then I got to Maryborough, and I thought I'll turn around now and head back to Shep. And I got to Denali, and there was a bit of a market going on. My phone rings, and it was Denise. She said, "Uncle, where are you?" And I said, "I'm in Denali." She said, "What are you doing there?" I said, "Oh, well, I was going to come down to Hamilton." She said, "Well, keep coming." She said, "Because come down for tomorrow." Yes. So this is how I got to be here. Yes. So, you know, these sort of things, you know, happen to us as a people, and we've lived with the signs of country, animals, and vegetation, and everything that told us the stories of if the wattle's falling into the Murray River, the Murray cod's biting, and things like that, and when the eels are on the move, and things like that, you know. And we watched the animals and seen their reaction to certain plants that if you ate them, you die. They'd poison you. So we were great, and still are, you know, people who acknowledge our country and respect it, and because it's our lifeline.
I think, John, we're TOs. Traditional owners.
Yes, exactly.
Of this country.
Exactly.
They are standing on our land.
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. And when in the early times when there was a lot of interaction with Aboriginal groups, and you talk about the massacres, you talk about, you know,
Right in the middle of a massacre.
yeah. So you're here, and there's massacres, right? 60% of the massacres that happened in Victoria happened in this area.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and there's hundreds and thousands of Aboriginal people who you know were massacred, and they were our families. They were our families.
We carry them in our bones now.
Exactly. You know.
All of that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's carried in our bones now.
So it's always a big thing. And I'll go back now to Budj Bim, and way back in the day there was a giant that lived in that area, and he was a very vicious person, and he would kill the men. And so the women said to him, we've got to stop this, so we'll call him to a meeting. So they called him to a meeting up there. But before he got to the meeting, they placed snakes all around where he was going to sit. So they had to fix him somehow. So they sat him in amongst the snakes, and the snakes bit him, of course, and he died. And they carried him down to the coast, and they pushed him out to sea. And now he's still out there, and you can see him, and that is Julia Percy Island. Gunditjmara to us, right? Now, the funny thing, we're very spiritual people. Aboriginal people are very spiritual people. But I have a friend who lives in Port Fairy, and he's a white fella, but he's a good guitarist, so that makes him okay. And when he was a kid, he used to go rabbiting on Gunditjmara. And they'd row out in the boat, and he was about 14, and this day the swells became so bad they couldn't row back to Port Fairy, so they spent the night there. He reckoned it was the most hairiest night that he ever spent anywhere. He heard moans and groans and all. He said as soon as daybreak come, we was in that boat and we were gone. So, you know, I think there's a lot of things that we take for granted, and sometimes maybe we sort of miss the calling of what it really is, and that sometimes is something that sort of slips past us, and then later on down the track, the penny drops, you know. And yeah, I remember that, and I remember this, and you know, and. But look, if the yes vote, you know, shocked anyone, I don't know why it did, because Australia had the worst racist recognition worldwide in 1987, you know, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And these people, they live on countries where our people have died, and it wasn't just killing the men; it was killing the kids and the women. You know, and you know, I know that Yoorrook has had the Minister of Police, the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, and that before them, and I think that, and apparently the Premier is coming up, and I think there's one person we've all missed out on, and that one person is the Governor of Victoria, because the Governor of Victoria is responsible for all the Native Police and Aboriginal Protection Board that was put in place. And when they put that together, the Governor of Victoria picked all those who should be on that board, the Aboriginal Protection Board. And that position needs to be called to the front of the Yoorrook Royal Commission as well. And it's not there yet, and I'm crying out for that to happen. I really am. And it's never happened. And I think that that's one of the most important positions that ever came up. And of course, the Aboriginal Protection Board consisted of magistrates, police, clergy, everyone but a good, honest citizen, you know. And when that was the Aboriginal Protection Board, but who could protect us from them? No one. And we are the result of everything that's gone wrong from the very beginning. and the stolen generation, the Aboriginal deaths in custody. It jumped from 383 Aboriginal deaths in custody within a matter of 2 months. It's 500. Well, let me tell you, deaths in custody started in the 1800s when they started building Lake Conda missions and other missions. And everyone that died there has a ward of the state. You know, my old uncle, where are you? Grandfather, yeah. When he died and came home and was buried, how old was he? Yeah, and still a ward of the state. Still a ward of the state. Another cousin who died in a institution in Ararat, same thing, ward of the state. How do you become still a ward of the state at 57, 58 and 59 years old? You know? So there really needs to be, I think, there really needs to be, if we're going to do it, let's do it right and let's do it proper, and let's not miss anything. You know, it has to be a fair dinkum show of hands for what we need to be done, and those responsible for the positions that they hold today, they are still responsible for those positions, for what happened in the 1800s. You know, if you've belonged to an organisation, you know, and you're the chairman and you make decisions and things like that, and pass votes, and and a change of hands, a change of directors, you know, things still stand. And for too long it's gone on that, yeah, everyone sort of talked about, you know, the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs. Well, I don't see, and I've had dealings with quite a few of them, probably 3 or 4, and how detrimental have they been to Aboriginals who they're supposed to have a responsibility to? You know, if you're the minister of something, surely you put your best foot forward and really get into it, and you know, and make the best situation possible for the people that you're representing. Hasn't happened in this country. Hasn't happened across Australia. You know, we had the sorry day. You know, waited 5 years. Everyone was sitting there doing this. What's going to happen now for 5 years? What's happened? Nothing. Nothing. And so, you know, we really need to really put the pressure on, and you know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see an all Aboriginal government in this country. I really would. I've had a lawyer and another friend do research on my status as a non-Australian citizen from 2018 to 2024, and their legal opinion is that I'm not an Australian citizen under all the acts that have been passed. So I would really love to see, I was born in 1947, go back, non-Australian citizens. 1948, different, but he's another non-Australian citizen.
Are we in the Constitution,
Yeah.
John?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
yeah, we're mentioned.
But
We're
not-
mentioned in the
but not
Constitution. No.
That was the referendum.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I would really love to see an Aboriginal government. And I think that it would be really something, and it doesn't have to be outside of, it has to be outside the Australian government, of course. But there can be a working group, like what ATSIC was, you know, with, and we nearly controlled all our issues then until things happened, and ATSIC was closed and things like that, and the finger pointed back to the blackfellas, of course. No one else was to blame except them blackfellas. You know, they caused the problem. So that's truly what I believe. I believe that now, if Yoorrook really wants to put to hammer down, they really need to call the governor of the state to come before it and to answer those questions as to why and how. And you know, when 37,000 non-Australian, non-Aboriginals in 2 world wars get repatriation, and a blackfella can't get it. And you'll know too that the highest medals in the 2 world wars were, of course, the Victorian Cross, right? There was one blackfella from Framlingham Mission, Rawlins, done the same thing that Ted Kenner done in Hamilton. Ted Kenner got the VC, Rawlins got the Military Cross. You know, and you couldn't give it to, if it was a medal higher than the VC, the Victorian Cross, you couldn't give it to an Aboriginal. You could give him the military medal instead, you know, just one down, that'll do him. So all of those things, you know, that needs to be really, really pushed and looked at. And if we're ever going to get anywhere, then, you know, this is really what needs to happen. It really needs to happen. Otherwise, let's just all walk away from it.
We've never been told how we lost our land. We've never been told.
No bill of sale.
And we know that it wasn't settled because we know our mob was slaughtered through massacres.
Well, this is a massacre site here.
Yeah, but we've never been told how we lost our land. And I think that's the first thing that needs to happen, is we need to be told.
Yeah.
Our children need to be told what actually happened here, because this thing about not building a house and not cultivating the land that still sits in the law books is bullshit. And it was the legal system that let us down, that never come to our aid during that whole time. They never come to help. Never come to help us. Just it was quite content with what was happening to us to allow it to happen.
Yeah.
And we just didn't die out.
No.
Yeah. But we were never told how we lost our land. You either do it through a conquer, through war. A war was never declared on this country, and this land was country was never settled.
And we never see it as sovereign.
No, and it was never settled. So that's the first thing that we need to hear for our future generations. Because, to change that trauma and that tragic, to change it, they've got to know what actually happened. Yeah, and it's about that truth telling. Yeah.
Are there any plans to recognise this place?
Yes.
So
So this I didn't end the story, did I? So the landowner, because the permit was issued, so it was invalid, so it ended up in VCAT. So that all happened. He was subdividing and going to put apartments or whatever on it. But anyway, he went into receivership, and the Commonwealth Bank contacted us and said, "Do you want to have this property? You just got to pay the rates," and it was all handed back to us. So yes, we will have it as a place to recognise a massacre, but the massacres of Gunditjmara, because there's Conongatong,
everywhere,
Luberus Flats. There's so many. Like Uncle John said, the 60% of the massacres in Victoria happened here, because this was the first place of contact. It was horrible. Yes.
It's such an important place, but there's nothing to signify.
No. Yes. So it's finding the time to get there. We just did World Heritage, so now we'll have that time and space to work here and
to work it out.
Acknowledge it. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, sorry, can I just, you said it's subject to paying rates.
Yes.
Did you say that? So you have to pay rates, and where are you supposed to get
Well,
That's it.
we paid the rates. I think it was $6,000. So we paid that, and then the land was handed over to us, transferred to us.
Oh, so once off.
What
Yes,
happened?
yes. It was only just what was outstanding. Yeah.
No more paying
No.
rates. No.
Oh, so the fellow who went into receivership owed land?
Yes.
Or something?
Yes.
And you settled up his debt?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you now have title?
Yeah. So after all that, after doing that, but it was it got really vicious, and threats of violence, and insults, and
Ugly,
derogatory terms, very similar, not as severe as what it was for the Alcoa case, during that time.
And most of the people that are getting threatened by these real heroes are our females.
Yeah.
You know. They won't step up to her.
No.
I get death threats today.
Yeah.
I get death threats today.
You know.
Threatened, yeah.
Thank you for sharing those stories.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for listening too.
Well.
Yeah. I know, yeah.
I know that everyone's had a really big day on Gunditj, and I just wanted to acknowledge that because truth telling is traumatic. And it's traumatic because of the denial of violence and what a colony actually means for our people. And I wanted to also acknowledge the elders that have spoken today. It's a story that they've told over and over, and I'm really conscious that every time I come here to talk about the monuments, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but then I look at the likes of Uncle Johnny and Auntie Maud and Auntie Laura Bell, who keep on showing up and they keep on telling that same story over and over. And it's something that makes me very proud, but also it makes me sad, because why do we have to keep on repeating ourselves? We're not parrots, we're very proud people. So we need people to start listening. I just wanted to orientate us first to explain where we are, and then Braid might want to say a couple of words, because then I've got definitely a word salad for where we are today. But so we're actually here, what's called or known as the ploughed field, and more specifically the ploughed field is up there in that area. You'll see like a lot of pine trees and stuff like that, and it's where the Henties, who you will become familiar with, that was the first area that they had said that they'd put potatoes and farmed and stuff like that. So, you know, when you talk about new buildings and stuff and you turn the first soil, it's all very, very lovely ploughed fields. Behind me, this monstrosity is one of two monuments dedicated to the Henties. And then just to the left of me, we've got the whaling pot where the colonisers used to boil down the whale fat. But also in that, Gunditjmara people were also boiled down in those pots. So we also have one more monument in town that we talk about, and it's just down from the council office. So the council office is exactly where I'm pointing. I'm very... But that monument also points out to where you fellas have just come from, which is the convincing ground. So I think it's really important just to orientate ourselves, and then I'll shoot it over to Braden, and then you can go, cousin.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, I think, and just to sort of echo what was said down at the convincing ground by Auntie Denise and Uncle Johnny and Auntie Oogie too, was that, you know, there was a lot of hurt that took place between when these whalers did show up and, you know, to this point in time right now, the fact that I'd known what Uncle Johnny was going to say, you know, as soon as he had started, because I had heard it before. I'd known what Auntie Niece was going to say because I had heard it before. And that was our job. That's been our job, is to sit there and listen and to understand, you know, what they were going to say, and then find a way to say it ourselves. And so that's what we do. That's what we've been doing here for the last 6 or 7 years now. I don't really remember when we started, but this ploughed field every Jan 26 has became an opportunity for us to take this back and reclaim the ploughed field for what we want to use that space for now. We see, you know, people love to come through here and walk through this lovely little spot here with, you know, their dogs or their family and whatnot, and probably don't realise that the real sort of destruction that does to us as Indigenous, as First Nations people, you know, to use the space in that type of way and give to the fact that, you know, it was the first ever ploughed field in this region, or, you know, the first settlement. It's just not true. There was settlement way before the Henties showed up here, and there was happiness, there was family, there was sadness and sorrow, and there was wars. We still loved to get angry at one another back then too. But there was a civilization that existed here, and to sort of echo what Uncle Johnny and Auntie Denise sort of said was that they attempted to cut that out. They pretended like we didn't exist, like we didn't matter, and then tried to commit a genocide and take us all out. And, you know, Auntie Nisi said it then, and I'll say it again, but it was a failed attempt. And so we show our survival every year on that day to recognise, you know, them First Nations people who did fight in them wars. They call them frontier wars, but it wasn't our frontiers. So it was, you know, they were guerrilla type warfare that took place in them first, you know, 150 years. And them wars we're still answering for today, you know, because we fought back so hard and so well. Our people are put at a disadvantage today because of it. And so we come together at this place here and talk about sort of, you know, the fact that it is comedic that the Shire here in Portland want to say, you know, Portland's the first ever settled place in Victoria. It is comedic that they still promote these ideas, these, you know, really destructive, you know, talking points that try their best to tear us down and make us look small. You know, we stand next to them and we feel small, but truth is I'm way bigger than this monument. I'm way bigger than any other monument that they want to build. And that's because I have brothers and sisters next to me. I have uncles and aunties and mothers and fathers that will continue to outgrow these things. You know, as tall as they build them, we're still going to be taller. We're still going to be bigger. That fight, we get together and we show it here. It started, there was only maybe 10 or 15, back when my brother sort of just wanted to get community together in sort of a response to what was happening around Australia, the movement to having or holding some type of, you know, demonstration that we're here on Jan 26 to go out and flood the streets and to shut down CBDs. Whilst that was happening everywhere else, we needed our own little, you know, something to do that here on such an important place. You know, what could we build here? And yeah, my brother, sort of Chris Saunders, he decided to get a few people together, and it was mainly just people who wanted to commemorate the day with the smoking, and that was held down at the convincing Ground Massacre site. And then, and it was a sort of a dawn setting smoking, and over the next sort of 2 or 3 years, it got into some of our friend groups, and they were like, well, why can't we come in? Why can't we come and do that? And you know, it just started off. I remember walking down the street a week before Jan 26, and people who I played footy with, who I didn't think cared anything about my Aboriginality, asking me, hey, you know, what are you guys going to do for Jan 26? Are we right to come down, and are we right to be there? Are we right to show our support? And that realisation that, oh, there are people within this community that do want to stand up with us and do want to be there by our side. And so Chris had decided to, put that on show and allow other people to come into that after our Gunditjmara only dawn service. And then we had 100 people on the first year, and the very next year there was another 300 people, and then the year after that there was 400 people, and we now have a gathering where, you know, we outgrew the space here at Ploughed Field, and this year, 2024, we moved down to the front of the bay down there, where the Glenelg Shire has done a decent job at creating a space for community, and I hadn't seen anyone use it the way that we used it this year. And yeah, there would have been, again, around that 400, 500 people show up and show out, and it's not something that, you know, we ever really understood where it was going to go, but we just wanted to give people an opportunity to celebrate, you know, people like the elders that we've heard so much about, and it actually became, you know, a lot of us young ones sort of taking that step forward, and, you know, to have Auntie Laura and Auntie Denise and all of our elders come in and still want to use the space. I think it was really important for that, for them to see us, their young ones, stepping up and trying their best to fill them shoes. Truth is, we may never, but we will try, and it's because they did. They definitely tried. So yeah, this space here became something that we're really proud of, and we look forward to every summer. You know, I said it this year at this year's recent Jan 26 celebration. You know, we had a barbecue on Jan 26. We had family come around type thing, and I said it wasn't too dissimilar from what, you know, white fellas seem to want to hold on to for so much at that Jan 26 day. We showed pride, but there was a difference in it, you know. We weren't coming together to celebrate the genocidal maniacs of this, you know, of this country. We're actually coming together to make sure that the ones who were victims of that genocide are no longer misheard, are no longer misspoken about ever again. And we have an opportunity to speak for them. And that was the difference. That's the difference. And, you know, you could say it till the cows come home, but people aren't going to realise that until they come down and put themselves in that position to hear and learn and listen. And so, yeah, I really do applaud that effort today to put yourself in them shoes, and to not just leave it to, you know, Sally, because, you know, Sally's interested in Aboriginals, you know. You can do it too. Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know. She's just a lovely lady. A lovely white lady. I know Sally. We all know a Sally. Yeah. Yeah. Step into it yourself and try your best to see it from our point of view, and listen. And also talk too. One of my older cousins who helped us sort of lead the day as well, said to me, it does feel sometimes like you're at a funeral though. It does feel like, you know, you don't want people to come up to you and talk about, you know, hey, I really want you to do this or do that, or, you know, no, I just want to be left alone. And for the most part, you know, that can be a feeling that we feel on that day, that it is a mourning. And so you can leave people to mourn in their silence and have their moments to themselves, but the space is there for them. They're allowed to do that, and it's no longer frowned upon. It's no longer something that we don't understand. Yeah, so yeah, it's really important that we're here, that we get to understand this space. We get to talk about these stories every year, and we don't really change much, but people continue to show up. You know, it doesn't have to change much. I think people love to be reminded of that, or need to be reminded of that story of the Henty brothers, of the whale cauldrons. You know, they ask the questions: where did the bodies go from that massacre site? And one of the Henty brothers wrote in his diaries that the whale cauldrons were lit that night, and it was because that's exactly what they were doing. And that's the reality of it, that's the truth in it, and that's what we're here to do. But the fact that it's sitting up there real proud and like a badge of honour, it's what we did it couple of years ago, we went into the mayor's office and said, you know, we want to remove these monuments that tear at our heart, and they play with us. These things. They don't do anything else to you, but they hurt us. It's hurt. It's a monument of hurt. That's what they do. Take it down. And the response was, well, you know, why don't we start small? And we said, no, cut the head off the snake. Stop hurting. Stop continuing to hurt your people. Cut the head off the snake. Fall it all. And then see what sort of pride you can have in this place. Yeah. That's me. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do here. Yeah, I think my brother Chris, when he started it, he was not sure, like I said, exactly how big and important it was going to get. And, you know, this year was the biggest, and we had people come, and we now have people who don't go wanting to shut down the CBD in Melbourne because they want to get out here and see what we do here. And yeah, we implore you to do exactly that. It's not something that's led by any community group, or, you know, it's just a couple of brothers who wanted to make it possible for our families to feel that mourning space. And it just so happened that, you know, the community around us wants people to realise that we aren't alone. We will never be alone. Yeah.
Thanks, Ray. So I have written out a word salad because I can't be reasonable when I talk about colonisation, and I can't be reasonable when I talk about the Henties because I feel angry and I get upset, and I want key messages to be communicated clearly, never reasonably. If anyone knows me, I'm not a reasonable person by any means, but colonisation isn't reasonable either. So, you know, here I go. So I wanted to acknowledge the elders in attendance, especially my Uncle Johnny Lovett, who is my nan's baby brother, and Auntie Maud as well, Auntie Oogie, Auntie Donna, Auntie Laura's in the car there. I just think that it's so deadly that we have elders that continue to show up for mob, and it's so important. We talk a lot about succession, but we should also continue to acknowledge our elders and who we've grown up with, watching do all the things. So thank you. I wanted to acknowledge fellow speakers for the day who have covered things like soldier settlement, loss of culture, lack of adequate facilities for our elders, and the convincing ground, to name a few. I also wanted to acknowledge my countrymen in the crowd, so Gunditjmara and Yoorrook people, and last but not least, acknowledge country that has never been and will never be ceded. Always was, always will be. For those that don't know, my name is Keisha Day, and I'm a Gunditjmara Yoorrook woman who comes from Mirring and Waka, land that has never, ever been ceded. My matriarchy is Auntie Femi Day, who is a Lovett, and Auntie Frances Matheson, who is a Briggs, and my grandfather is Uncle Tommy Day, whose brother was Uncle Harrison Day, who was one of 99 deaths that occurred between January 1980 and 1989, examined for the Black Deaths in Custody Royal Commission. My sister Candice was only 2 days old when my uncle died in police custody after convulsing in Echuca police cells. I wanted to kick off by talking about colonisation here on my grandmother's country, and how, rather than an event, it's an ongoing systematic structure that seeks to normalise ideology of white supremacy that in turn makes us as First Nations people on our country other. After a voyage of 34 days, the Poxy Thistle arrived on Gunditjmara Mirring on 19th of November 1834 at 8 a.m. And so begins the deliberate and ongoing colonisation by Edward Henty and his brothers. It was Edward that told the anecdote, "I stuck a plough into the ground, struck a she-oak root and broke the point, cleaned my gun, shot a kangaroo, mended the bellows, blew the forge fire, straightened the plough, and then I turned the first sod in Victoria." He would have also mentioned, quite matter of fact, how he treated our ancestors with complete disregard of their humanity through acts of violence and theft as he willfully squatted on Gunditjmara Mirring. Him establishing what is known as Portland and surrounds was swift. By the time Major Thomas Mitchell led his overland surveying expedition from Gadigal mob down to Gunditjmara mob, It was with surprise that he encountered the Henties, and it was there he found Portland Bay, a thriving township and a flourishing agricultural industry, and that was in 1836. Only 2 years it took for a thriving township to be found, but at what cost to a Gunditjmara people? The same journals speak of atrocities committed by Edward and his equals. They are referred to as settlers and pioneers, but colonisation isn't settlement. Violence isn't used as a weapon of settlement. Massacres, rapes and theft is not settlement. To go further, there is nothing pioneering about being white supremacist and upholding an ideology that seeks to strip an entire nation of its language, its culture, its land and its people. Yet these colonisers continue to be celebrated through monuments on lands that they stole. And the people that they stole it from still have to bear witness to them. Not only that, they get place names and reserves and parks and beaches dedicated to them because this colony only knows its own lies. So when Gunditjmara people speak up and we speak out against gaslighting, we are demonised and we are told we are other. Comment sections on social media are rife with racists who directly and generationally benefit from land theft, the rapes and the massacres. The Glenelg Shire here lacks leadership in doing the right thing, and that is taking down these monuments, renaming the streets, the parks, the reserves and the beaches, and accepting that their refusal to do so is part of the violence that we continue to bear witness to and experience in their colony on lands that were never ceded. Because gaslighting is a form of abuse, and abuse is violence, and violence is a weapon of colonisation, which is not simply an event, but an ongoing structure that normalises ideology that is deliberate and destructive for all intent and purposes. We continue to call on Glenelg Shire to demonstrate true leadership in this space, go beyond the colonial impact register that we've already submitted to the Justice Commission, and really get real about celebrating and commemorating these genocidal maniacs on stolen lands. And if you want to tell the stories of Henties on my grandmother's country, then you better be telling the truth. Tell the truth about the Henties and who they were and what they did to our people. We should not have to keep on taking our supposed leadership to task whenever they feel like promoting yet another Henty exhibition, telling of the pioneering history of Victoria's birthplace. When are we going to stop forcing our mob to have to become distressed when the council, in all its wisdom, advertises their deadly new dog park as Henty Dog Park, knowing damn well what those genocidal maniacs did to Gunditjmara people? They set their dogs on human beings. They set their dogs on our men, women and children, and this council in all its wisdom wants to name its deadly dog park after the Henties? No. This is why I assert that these monuments are gaslighting and abusive, and we shouldn't have to keep stomaching these concrete slabs and place names that celebrate white supremacy and embolden the racists who benefit from it. When will we drill down to that reluctance? What are they afraid of? Upsetting the same racists who tell us we get everything for free and their taxes pay for us to sit on our holes, and that we always get something for nothing, and that we need to just get over it, like our reasonable reaction of anger and frustration isn't normal. And I'll tell anyone, colonisation isn't normal. Celebrating genocidal maniacs isn't normal, and the only thing normal that exists in the colony is our reaction to the colony. I wrote something for November 19th last year to commemorate our invasion, and I wanted to share it with you before I conclude. And it's called 189, which is the years since the Henties arrived. Gunditjmara immemorial, always was, always will be. Since time began, Gunditjmara Mirring has never been ceded. Mirring, plentiful, vast landscapes, tranquility. 189 years ago, Mirring and its people were invaded, raped and pillaged. These are the facts, documented in their own diaries of death, destruction and entitlement. White supremacy abound. Genocidal maniacs are washed on our shores, observing the fires of our warriors. Henty and his pathetic equals, searching for fertile land to rape by any means necessary. Descendants of the colony that will have you think we are the greedy ones. Greedy for asking for our humanity to be aligned with, that history is upheld and not repeated, that reparations for that history are made, and that they accept that the rent is due. They act like humanity is such a complex notion, when really it's simple. Mirring is ours and we belong to Mirring. And therein lies the uncomfortable truth, because imagine spending generations building wealth and then have it taken away. Imagine. Taken away from like our beautiful babies, anything to diminish our humanity. couldn't break the spirits of the fight in Gunditjmara, not over landscapes that were never seeded, not over whales, not over mission management either, but our babies, our beautiful brown babies buried up to their necks as their mothers wailed and their fathers emasculated. In prison, property of the colony that couldn't give a fuck about their pride, their knowledge, their intimate knowledge of seasons and landscapes. The beneficiaries of coloniser welfare declare, demand, move on, we are one. Tell that to the sands that bear witness to the blood of our ancestors, mere babies that had their heads kicked off like it was a game. A game? Game is existing in a colony that doesn't give a fuck about you or your sovereignty. Game is waking up every day and having to put a mask on and exist in a colony that continues to deny the conscious and unconscious bias that infiltrates and dictates our existence. Game is working so hard having the goalposts shifted and never being good enough unless we want to be good Aborigines that are grateful, compliant, accept a brutal past that's never been reconciled and turn a blind eye to the bias that allows such abusive demands. It's the same bias that imprisons us at higher rates, that continues to kill us in custody with no charges of murder, that profiles our kin, that gaslights our constituents to believe we are the problem, that has our elders still being buried in poverty after their lifetime of fighting for better conditions, that still continues to put their hands on our fucking kids. Why? Because colonisation is not an event, it's an ongoing structure, and yet here we are surviving, but not only surviving, striving to survive within a colony that doesn't give a fuck about us. Why? Because this is Gunditjmara Mirring, after all, always was and always will be. Despite it all, we will continue to work diligently to keep our landscapes protected, to keep the babies of those landscapes protected, and to hold those genocidal maniacs accountable for what they did to our people, to our land, all in the name of a colony that doesn't give a fuck about us. But you know who gives a fuck about us? Our ancestors, and that's all that should ever matter. That we are, and that we continue to be, and continue to teach our children to always strive, to thrive and be our ancestors' wildest dreams. Always was and always will be. To reiterate a point made earlier around an elders facility, it breaks my heart to think of our elders, the real trailblazers and the real pioneers who have spent their lives trying to better the lives of future generations and we still have no place for our elders to go. In July last year, my grandmother, Auntie Femi, went back to the Dreamtime, and all she wanted was to come home. But where the fuck was my grandmother going to go? Was she going to go over to Seaview House, our independent living, and look over at the monument and where Gunditjmara people were boiled? Was she going to stare at a Aussie pride flag, or was she going to look at the ploughed fields where they turned the first sod in Victoria? Where are we letting our elders go? They deserve better than that. They deserve better than to be gaslit and abused and made to feel other to their last breath. So shame on this colony, shame. They talk a big game about reconciliation and coming together and whatever else, but these same people continue to benefit from our shared history with no concept of how lonely and tiring living in a colony is. I want reconciliation that is tangible and where our generational wealth comes without terms and conditions and contracts and handouts and compromises of my sovereignty and my children's sovereignty and my elders' sovereignty and our animal and plant sovereignty. Enough is enough. How much more do you want to take from us? I want to be free from the racists. I want to be free from the violence of the colony. And I want my people to be celebrated. I want my elders to get to live out their days peacefully, where our children live a normal life that is safe from white hands and jail cells and all the statistics that land them there. I want to get to a place where I'm not described as angry or resilient, that I'm just me. Keisha Day, a Gunditjmara and Yoorrook woman who comes from Mirring and Waka, land that has never and will never be ceded. Thank you.
Just on behalf of the Commission, and I'm going to do it because this is Trav's country, and I want to thank you for leading land injustice on your own country, which is really hard. But I want to thank all the elders that come out today. And as Keisha said, we keep telling our stories, and you were able to tell it again today. and this will be part of the public record. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the Commission for allowing us on your country and for telling us your stories. And it means a lot to allow us on here and to be able to do this. So thank you.